As you know, I'm always looking for new ghost stories, and you can tell your ghost story to me in person if you book at the Phantom History House Bed and Breakfast. Go to phantomhistoryhouse.com, check out our 4 themed rooms, and book, and we will talk very soon. Hey everybody, it's Steve here at the Phantom History House Library, and I am talking via Zoom with Connie Brenner, who is with Preston Castle out in California. How are you, Connie?
I'm doing great. And you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me about such a cool landmark out there in California. I had a chance to talk to your colleague, Sydney, a little bit about the history of the location. So we won't touch quite as much on that here, but I know that you work on the paranormal aspects of things out there. So tell me a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, before we dive in.
I've been doing paranormal investigating for, I'm trying to think. I think I started back in like 20, maybe 2006 or seven. Just started like a friend of mine and we were watching Ghost Hunters and we were like, I wonder if there's a local group, to see and try this out. And we found one. And so we went on a few investigations with a local group. Things just kind of blossomed from there. We kind of broke off on our own and started doing our own and paranormal investigating, different, buildings, homes, cemeteries, different stuff like that. And then one of the girls that we were uh, doing paranormal investigating with, she somehow got connected with Preston Castle, and she brought me up there, and it was just one of those places where I don't know, it's like you're drawn to it. Um, and so I was kind of on the hook from like my very first time going up there.
Okay. And from that very first time, were you convinced that it was haunted and had some activity?
I wasn't 100% sure. I needed to kind of, I've always been kind of one of those people that I need to have an actual experience, personal experience to say, I used to say, let the boogeyman pat me on the shoulder type thing. But my very first night ever going up there, I was just a regular guest going up there to do a paranormal investigation. And I saw a full body apparition for the very first time that night. And I was also touched. And so by the end of that night, I was 100% convinced this place is haunted.
That's amazing because, a lot of people don't experience that, or if they do experience it, it takes a long time of investigating before they encounter something like that. So the
Right.
apparition, just for some context, I know Preston Castle used to be kind of like a boys' home, for years and years. I know it had some other roles as well. Was the apparition of one of those boys? Was it a man? Was it a woman? Or could you tell? Because I know sometimes they aren't always super distinct.
Um, so I could definitely tell it looked like a man in a white jacket, and it was just like almost like a profile picture type thing. We were in the doctor's office area, and which is just one of many rooms throughout the whole castle. And I saw what looked like a man in a white jacket just walk down the hallway. And there was a girl that had her back towards the door, and I asked her, can you go and look and see? I couldn't hear anything, but I wanted her to check and see if somebody had just walked down, the hallway. And she went and looked, and there was nobody. The other group that was there was in a totally different part of the building. And there was nobody there that actually had, like, I thought maybe a white hoodie or something like that. So I'm pretty convinced it was a doctor.
Okay, so one of the former doctors that used to work there, and I know this place is pretty big. It's a sizable location. So you said this was like in a doctor's office. What part of the building is that in?
So that's on the first floor. There, we don't have access to it right now, but it's there's like different rooms that are have signs and stuff like that on them. And that one is labeled the doctor's office. I think there was even like there was a closet in there that might have been kind of like their pharmacy area. But so it's essentially it's a decent sized room with like it's sectioned off into two different sections. And so at the time we were able to go in there, and there was a bunch of us kind of piled into this room, and yeah, it was there was no sound, there was no, you didn't hear any footsteps or anything like that. It almost just looked like he was just kind of gliding along. My guess is that it was more of a residual type thing, and he was just doing his business.
Yeah, and you predicted my next question because I was going to ask, is he active or residual? Now, was this the same room where you said that something touched you, or was that somewhere else in the building?
So I was touched in the infirmary area.
Okay, so is that nearby where the doctor's office is, or is that like a separate area?
It's on the same floor. So the castle is shaped like a giant T. And so I believe the infirmary area was added on at a later point to the rest of the castle. And so same floor, but just a different area of the floor.
Okay, so not too far from where you were, and having both of those
No.
things happen in one visit is pretty amazing. And then, like you said, you were convinced after that visit that there's something there.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
what is your affiliation with Preston Castle now? Are you like an official paranormal investigator there, or what is your relationship?
So I lead the paranormal tours. I'm in charge of leading those. I was on the board of directors for a little bit, and um, I I have since stepped down from that. And but I also was doing our haunted attraction too. Was on our Halloween haunt committee as well. So yeah, I've done a few different things there.
Okay. And like you said, it's a very active place. So I'm assuming that some of these tours results in some other paranormal activity, or do people approach you and say, "Hey, I saw something or experienced something"? Is it a pretty regular occurrence?
Yeah, pretty much. We rarely have anybody say that, they've had nothing. Like, I mean, there are nights that are quieter than others. Most of the time people seem to have personal experiences, and they may be very subtle. This isn't a place that I would say, is off the hook type stuff, but we do, especially lately, we've been getting a lot more activity. Sorry, there goes my dogs.
No problem.
We've had a lot more activity happen. It seems like for the past few months, or I would say this paranormal tour season, we've rarely had a night where, you know, we haven't had anything happen. So
What is it that people usually experience on these tours? Is it a feeling? Do they see things? What kind of things are they sharing?
kind of a little bit of both. A lot of people are seeing, they'll see like black shadows or black blobs, and or shadow figures or something like that. If they don't see that, a lot of people will see, or sorry, they'll feel things, like they may feel a heaviness in a room, or um, sometimes even in areas they'll feel maybe a little sick to their stomach, or feelings of being overwhelmed, because if you think about what happened there, there's a bunch of these boys coming in probably scared to death, not knowing what they were going to, run into. And so I'm sure as far as emotions go, they were probably pretty heightened, especially as they entered the castle.
I'm sure, and I know that it was a wide variety of ages that were entering in there too. And of
Yeah.
course, that leads to my next question for you is you kind of answered it. You know, why is this place so active, and who is there? You think a majority of the spirits there are related to these boys?
I think so. I believe that, I mean, if people believe in vortexes or portals or anything like that, I kind of feel like there's a revolving door. We get, anything from uh, boys to staff, to guards. We with the infirmary was also used as the town hospital, the local hospital. So I'm sure that there were deaths, that occurred there in the building that weren't, necessarily inmates or wards, or staff that were there. So, it could be a variety of different, but I would say most of the time it's, I would say, like maybe the strongest that are there are, we've got maybe a guard or two and some of the boys.
Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, along with the doctor that you mentioned before and the guards, I mean, there were obviously adults there to run things, and I
Right.
have a feeling some of those folks probably worked there for a very long time, so I'm sure there's an attachment of some kind.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you talked about, your first investigation and seeing the apparition and being touched. Has there been anything else there that you've experienced there personally where you were like a oh my gosh moment, while you're investigating that stands out for you?
We've been having a lot of activity happen with some of our equipment. And in fact, just a few weeks ago, it was myself and two other team members, and we were down in the basement area, and the equipment was it was crazy. We just had this moment where all of our equipment was kind of going off. We had a spirit box going, and there were words coming through that sounded like they were saying staff members, and we had this moment of feeling almost like surrounded, like we were being surrounded. And it got interrupted by a walkie-talkie. It was just a real like crazy moment where we were all feeling like it was just super intense. And so that is definitely something that happens there. Among being touched, we get windows rattling, where when they shouldn't be rattling, and we'll hear, doors closing, footsteps, just kind of a variety of all kinds of different stuff.
So a mixture, and I'm wondering, is there one floor that seems to be more active than the others? I mean, I know you've talked about the first floor in the basement, but I know it's a really big building, or is it kind of evenly distributed?
So I would say the basement is our most active area. Um, at least as of late, it's been super active. The infirmary was really active for a while, and our second floor, that there's a particular part of that was being stirred up for a little bit too. Lately, it's been a little bit too hot to go up there. Because the building itself has no heat and air, and so we're just in the elements of, our summer, and it can get up to like 116 on the second floor. And then even at night, it's, still in the high 90s. And so it's not fun to go up there and just sweat as you're sitting there. But the basement itself, lately, we've been having a lot of activity and experiences in there.
Any idea what is causing, the sudden surge or sudden change? I mean, is it the time of year? Is it the number of people coming through? What would facilitate that?
It's been kind of an uptick in activity since the pandemic and us having to be closed for so long. I feel like I mean I remember going into the castle um during the pandemic, and you could almost feel the sadness and the loneliness. Like it was almost like they missed us. You know what I mean? It was a really odd feeling walking in there after not being able to go in for so long. And so um I would say that that has something to do with it. And also, a lot of, and I have found this in different buildings and different places that I've investigated. It kind of depends on who you're with, like the vibe that people bring. And so, um, if they're bringing, I don't know if depending on what kind of vibe that people are bringing in, I think depends on the amount of activity that we actually get.
Well, I mean, so many people say spirits are energy or forms of energy and can be attracted to our energy. So I guess that I mean, I can see that makes sense, and I like that that they missed you during the pandemic. And I've talked
Yeah.
to a lot of investigators who have said that they almost have like a camaraderie with the spirits after a while, after they investigate, one
Yeah.
place especially. Do you kind of find that the same way with you?
Oh yeah, we go, when I unlock the doors and walk into the castle for the first time, I call out to them, hey boys, we're here to do, some investigating, and we've got some guests coming up tonight, and it would be really nice if you could interact with us. So they were human. They were real people, and we really stress on treating them as real people. Um, it's kind of a I guess you could say a respect thing. And so yeah, I mean we all walk in there, and we talk to them before all the guests come, and call out to them and explain what's going on. So whether it makes a difference or not, I don't know. It's just kind of what we do.
Yeah, and I like the way you say that. They were once human, so respect goes a long way with the living. I'm sure it goes a long way with those who have passed as well. Is there
Right.
a spirit or an individual, tied to the place that you think is still there that you've interacted with? I mean, I know there were doctors, there were guards, there were some of these boys. Any identities on any of these entities?
Um, not, we think that we're pretty sure there's one particular guard. We're not entirely sure what his name is. Um, we've been calling him John, because that seems to be what, um, what we get the most response from. And, you know, I don't, yeah, we're not exactly sure. But it definitely, we feel this very strong male presence down in the basement, and he's um I don't think he's particularly happy. So this place, as far as paranormal activity goes, this is not a place you're going to come in and, trying to find evil or demons or anything like that. That's not what we have there. We have our boys, and, we think that this one particular guard is just not, he's pretty unhappy. But he's never been harmful or anything like that. So, it would be nice to actually know, be able to confirm his name. We're just not entirely sure, but we call him John.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of times it takes time to identify these individuals. However you investigate, whether it's a spirit box or a medium or whatever, I know they're not always forthcoming with that kind of information.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
yeah, I know it's an ongoing kind of journey. What is your favorite spot in the building? I mean, you talked about the infirmary and the doctor's office. I'm assuming that might be what you say, but Where do you like to be in that building?
I like to be in the basement. We've just been getting so much incredible activity down in the basement, pretty much in every section of that. It's just been a real hot spot. The infirmary, it's changed a little bit. It's definitely like a cool part of the building. The beds in there are original and we can actually sit or lay on the beds. They're not clean, they're dirty and they're not comfortable. But there's sections of that castle that are almost a little what I would say kind of like Winchester mystery type, where there's steps leading up some places and steps leading down some, and some are leading up to, like little closets and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I would say, for the most part, as of right now, it would be the basement, and it's like the entire basement area.
And that's where the infirmary is, right? Or was that the first floor?
No, that's the first floor. Now in the basement we have I don't know if Sybil talked about the delousing pool, but we have a delousing pool down in the basement next to our intake area. And it's pretty creepy down there.
Now, she did mention it briefly, and did I think she may have used the same word, eerie or creepy. I'm not sure which one.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did say it was a little bit interesting down there, to say the least. So you think that or you've experienced some activity down in that room?
Yeah, especially the intake area. Like I said, that when the boys came in, through intake, I can only imagine them, even of all ages being scared, not knowing what they're going to do. They were stripped of their clothes. They were thrown in the pool, whether they could swim or not, so the actual, emotion and energy level down there is pretty strong. That is also where we think that our guard hangs out. He hangs out in that particular room. Not sure why. There is a set of looks like a little closet, but there's a set of stairs that I believe were used for the superintendent to use. It went directly up into his office, so he didn't have to walk through the entire castle to get to his office. It's been closed off for as long as I can remember, but they're working on opening up the rest of that stairway. But there's, for some reason, in that little stairway, we think that our guard John hangs out in. So that particular room itself, there's a lot going on. Even my husband, who doesn't do, I mean, he would probably do more paranormal investigating if he could, but he doesn't like that particular room. He said he feels like the floor is almost moving under his feet, like a wave type feel. And a lot of people have described feeling almost car sick in that room.
Okay, so kind of like a motion sickness, and the wave kind of goes along with it, I guess. Same kind of vibe. And how big is this delousing pool that you're talking about? I mean, I know you don't probably have the exact measurements, but I'm just trying to picture it.
No. So I don't know how big it's like this big, like rectangle cement um pool, and it's deeper at one end than it is the other.
Okay, so kind of like a
And
swimming pool, but not quite.
yeah, so it's just all like a big like rectangle concrete.
Yeah.
Um and so it doesn't really have like, they may have had steps at one time, but it doesn't really have steps down into it. I think it may have a step or something down. We had it filled for I think it was for a photo shoot a couple of years ago, and then but since then it's been empty. So it's just a big kind of empty void in there.
Wow. And I've also heard this about historic locations, especially ones like Preston Castle. The more activity as in, reconstruction or rehabilitation to the building, I've been told that that can kind of stir up activity as well. Do you think that
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. And we're constantly doing stuff to that building. I mean, ideally, it would be nice if we could get like some multi-billionaire to come in and, sponsor the whole thing. I doubt I'll ever see it finished in my lifetime. There's just so much to do and it's so expensive, and trying to restore it to what it looked like, what it originally looked like. Um, those type of materials and stuff like that aren't, easy to come by. And it's just structurally it needs so much work. I mean, there's a whole area where from pretty much the almost from the basement all the way up, it's completely missing every floor. And so we kind of call it the garbage chute, but yeah, it's there's this just a whole section that is completely missing. So there's areas of that are missing floors, ceilings. There's areas of where the floor is too soft. The public is not allowed to go in those areas. But right now, the building is 5 stories in some areas. And so we have access, or the public has access to the basement, first and second floor only.
Okay, so there's still a lot more to explore when it's safe enough to do so. It sounds like you have to kind of get it
Right,
up to standards.
right.
Yeah, it's so sad to see these old, amazing buildings, fall to that kind of disrepair. But it sounds like that there is a team working to restore it to its former glory. And I'm assuming these tours are part of that effort, right? Does the money kind of help go to kind of renovate the place and bring it back?
Yeah, so we're completely 100% volunteer. Myself and all my team members, we are 100% volunteer. I mean, I live like an hour and 15 minutes away from the building. And so, my travel there isn't super easy. But yeah, so everything that all these tours, the day tours, and every event that we have goes right back into restoration. Currently, our biggest moneymaker is our Halloween haunt.
And I can see that. I know Halloween is huge. It's huge over here in Florida as well. Everybody's looking for that next big haunt to go check out. And geez, with a backdrop like that building, I mean, that's
Oh
incredible.
yeah, yeah. So our biggest prop is the building itself.
I'm sure.
All
Yeah.
we do is we go and enhance it. And this is not a blood and gore type haunt. This is more of a jump scare ghostly. So all of our actors, we have a ton of kids. And what's creepier than a kid crawling out from underneath a bed, and
Sure.
so these kids are dressed in, like Titanic era type clothing. And yeah, I mean, we it's an incredible way to fundraise for the castle. And we have, well over 100 volunteers that help out in that process.
That's amazing. And again, what a great idea to celebrate what the building is, celebrate its history, and also help kind of, bring it back. So
Right.
shifting gears here, I always like to ask this of people I talk to, especially paranormal investigators. And you may need a minute to think about this, or you may know right away. But do you recall what your first paranormal experience was? I mean, was it as a kid? Did you see something in your room? Was it not until you worked at Preston Castle? Does something stand out where you were like, there's something beyond our understanding?
So my first paranormal, I can totally remember my first paranormal experience. I was a kid, and we had a 2-story home. Not it was new. My parents, watched it be built from the ground up. And anyways, I remember being in bed, and we had a in the hallway there was a light, on the ceiling of the hallway. And so the light was on and there was something standing in my doorway. And I thought it was my mom. And I remember calling out to her and it didn't move. So it was just this black shadow figure standing in my doorway. And when I think about it now, it wasn't as tall as my mom. It was actually, it was pretty small. I don't know what it was. I just remember like not responding, and I just like turned away and hoped that it would go away. I don't even think I even checked back to see what it was, but it was something that I don't think I'll ever forget.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I mean, it was something that made quite the impact on you. And would assume, and the reason I always ask that is because I always wonder what sparked that interest into the paranormal for a lot of investigators. Is that what made you say, I want to learn more, I want to find out more later on in life?
No, actually, I remember this happening and then like I kind of forgot about it. And then, um, back in 94, I went and, I had to go to Connecticut to help my, grandmother pack up her like 80 to 90-year-old home, for her to come out to California. And my cousins called me up and they were like, you know, it was during Halloween. I think it was actually Halloween night. And they said, hey, do you want to go see these like ghost people with us? And I was like, all right, I had nothing to do. It was Halloween night and I didn't really want to pass out the candy or anything like that. Well, it turns out it was Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Wow.
And yeah, so I had no clue who they were. Um, but after going to see them, like that was what really, I think, you know, was my moment of like, I want to do some of this stuff. Like I'm really curious about it. And had I known back then of who they were, I probably would have, been pretty starstruck by that because it would have been just, I don't know. It was just such an amazing experience, learning from them about the whole Annabelle doll, like the story from them. We're not talking movies or anything like that, but they had a slideshow and all this other stuff. And it was just, it was a really amazing and interesting event to go to. And I think after that, I was just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of what I really want to do. I want to check this out more. So that would have been probably my aha moment of getting into paranormal investigating.
And I love that they're referred to as, these ghost people. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they didn't know. They were just
Yeah.
like, let's, go and see these ghost people. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. I mean, I had they didn't have any idea of who they were or anything like that. And it's just, I do remember after that show coming home at night and laying down and like listening, because here I am in this old like Victorian type looking house that my grandparents had, and wondering, am I going to hear some dead people or something? I don't know. It was kind of crazy. And so, yeah, that was a really fun experience.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of felt like I met, I got to see the holy grail of paranormal investigators. So yeah, that's kind of a fun thing.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who has actually seen them live. Of course, everybody talks about
Yeah, yeah.
the Conjuring movies, etc. That's incredible. I'm very jealous. So shifting back to Preston Castle before we wrap up, Two questions. Of course, I want to learn how people can take the tour if they register online or what have you. And what are those tours like? Do people get like EMF meters? Do you lead as the lead investigator? What's that experience like for people?
So they you can book a night on our website, prestoncastle.org. Right now our tours they're done for the year, and I'm hoping to have tours up and running. I'm hoping in January. We're finding that the heat, when we run them too far into summer, the heat is just unbearable. Um, we have a very dry heat, which I would much prefer over the humidity like you guys have there in Florida and the East Coast. Yeah, I don't know how I've been back in the East Coast during summer and it's just miserable. But so we just ended our tour season for the paranormal back on the 15th of July. And so I'm hoping to have them up starting in January. And as far as, what goes on, we offer a private and a public tour. Private tends to be, actual like established groups and stuff like that, or people that just, want to have like a work office type party, I guess you could say.
Right.
But we don't provide any equipment for people to use. We'll bring our own equipment and like our own personal equipment and show people how to use them. And, kind of some of us will lend out, certain pieces of it and stuff like that for people to use. The biggest thing we encourage is bringing a flashlight. And so, but that's sometimes all you need. Like, you don't need a ton of fancy stuff. Everybody has a phone now, and you can do recordings on a phone and get EVPs and stuff like that. And so you don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. You could just do a recording on your phone. I know so many people that use just their phones and no other equipment. And, when they go to listen back, that is definitely something that we have come through. We have a lot of EVPs come through. So
So something is answering those questions, and of course you don't hear it till later. So you don't necessarily hear it in real time, but when you listen back is when you discover it.
Right. But some people, bring just some simple stuff. There's a lot of equipment out there that, isn't, super expensive that I don't know, to me, it's kind of an investment, a little bit at a time, especially if you're going to continue it. If people are coming up just to see what it's like, and kind of what we do, then, using your recorder on the phone is fine. Even some of the apps, even though they say for entertainment purposes only, we've had some of these apps, especially like the voice boxes or the ghost box apps and stuff like that. We've had those work just as well as, your $500 piece of equipment that you don't need to spend all that money on.
Right. Right. And it sounds like that these investigations, especially like the public ones, are for any kind of like level of interest or experience. If you're just brand new and curious, you can join in and see how it works. Or if you kind of have your own stuff and want to be led around, that works too.
Right. And this last last season, we offered something a little bit different, that we're going to start. We're going to do it again. We just wanted to kind of see what kind of interest that we would get. But we offered a kind of like a paranormal 101. It's a shorter amount of time. It was at a discounted rate. We would essentially go through the history of the castle, the equipment that we, personally used. We would get, we showed them some of the evidence, pictures, audio recordings, different stuff like that we would share with them. And then at the end of the night, um, like the last 2 hours of the night, we would actually do a short, investigation. And that was for people that have never done anything like that, but we're just curious about what we do. And it was in hopes that it would spark their interest enough to book a full night.
Absolutely. Kind of give them the bug, for lack of
Yeah,
a better
yeah,
term.
yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about people can register at PrestonCastle.org when they're up and running, probably around January. Anything that we didn't talk about or discuss about Preston Castle, from the paranormal side of things that you wanted to bring up, or I mean, if we covered everything, that's great too. But I want to give you one shot to share anything else you may have.
This building is so incredible. It sits on top of a hill. It's almost like a beacon over this town. It's a tiny, tiny little town. And I mean, they don't really have any fast food. Like their fast food is a Subway, you know. They don't, it's such a small town, and this whole entire town, you know, pretty much has some sort of picture of the castle on it. And so yeah, it's such an incredible building, and it's got so much history. And the the people that were there, like Merle Haggard, and stuff like that, it's really got such an interesting and a little bit of a sad history. These boys weren't treated um very nicely at times. And so I could imagine, even though I say we don't have anything there that's evil or demonic or anything like that, you know, it wasn't exactly a happy place.
Right.
And so yeah, we definitely could, have our share of upset spirits that are there. And so, our main thing is to treat them with respect and kindness. And, this is their home, and we're a guest in their home. So, with that, we think that, it's just it's more of a proper way, than to come in there and start calling out for demons or anything like that. Like
Yeah.
some of these shows that have been there, it's not that. It's
Okay.
not that. It's nothing like that. And so, if you're looking for demonic or evil stuff, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find it at Preston. But if you're looking just to have some experiences, whether they're personal or, lately we've, had evidence as far as equipment and seeing and stuff like that, then yeah, this is the place to come and check out. So
And also very, like you said, it's paranormal 101. It's nothing's going to scare you too badly, hopefully, but you could have a
no, I
very
mean,
chance of an encounter.
there, it depends. You got people that are super jumpy. I've had nights where there's more people afraid of the bats, because we have bats that fly around on all the floors. Um, and they come out during the summertime. And so sometimes we have, people are just scared of the bats that are flying around. But even if they don't have necessarily like a personal experience or have seen something or something like that, um, I don't think I've had anybody leave disappointed. Some It's interesting that some people will come up there for our paranormal tours, but they're more interested in the history or just walking around the building, at night in the dark. So, um, yeah, it's just kind of a cool place. It's definitely got an interesting vibe.
And it looks like it does. And if I ever make my way out that far west, I definitely want to check it out for myself. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful building. It was and is, and will be again. Thank you, Connie, so much for taking the time to share your stories with me and your experiences. I love that building. I love the history of it, and I'm glad that you and the rest of the team there are voluntarily celebrating that, which is very, very cool. So if anybody watching this interview would like to meet Connie and do a tour, whether a paranormal tour or a history tour, check out the links below, prestoncastle.org. You can book your time at the place, either in a public tour or a private tour. And I'm sure more information is available on their website. So thank you again, Connie, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching that. Remember, go to phantomhistory.com and sign up on the newsletter so you are alerted when we have a new podcast. And check out our new bed and breakfast at phantomhistoryhouse.com, where you can book your stay and we can talk ghost stories in person in the library. See you then.